Hi, I'm Mike Bellevue, and today is going to be part one of a two-part series on shooting Uberti's Remington Revolving Carbine and using paper cartridges, which I made using Dustin Winegar's Guns of the West paper cartridge former. So this is going to be part one where I actually make the paper cartridges, and in part two we'll go shoot them. This was originally going to be one video, but when I made it, it ran almost 30 minutes long. And I thought it would be better to give it to you in smaller doses. So let's see how we make those cartridges. Hi, I'm Mike Bellevue, and we're out here at Duelist Den again. And today we're going to be shooting my copy of a Remington Revolving Carbine. Now this replica is made by Uberti, and it's 44 caliber. And I've had it for about 20 years. So honestly, I have no idea who I bought it from, but I'm sure most of the cap and ball suppliers have these. Now I did a video on this 6 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago. But today I thought I'd do something a little bit different with it. I'm going to shoot it with conical bullets and paper cartridges, which I have not done. And before I do that, let's go back to the shop and make some of those paper cartridges. Well, okay, we are here in the shop. I'm going to make up some paper cartridges, and I'm going to be using this Guns of the West paper cartridge system that Dustin Winegar sent me. And Dustin is the host of the Guns of the West channel on YouTube. So if you're not familiar with that, which I hope you are, you can check it out. Now he sent me the whole deal, which is a 44 caliber standard pistol cartridge former, a 36 caliber pistol cartridge former revolver, and a 44 caliber Walker cartridge former. So make a more powerful cartridge out of that. Now each of these consists of 3 pieces. So here's the 44 one. So you got the mandrel, right, that you form the shells around. You've got the former, and then he's got this this little funnel so you can put powder in. Now I'm going to be honest with you, this works, but you don't have a much bigger target to aim at here than you do here, you know. So I find it a little bit difficult. It's better than nothing. I'm still using my brass funnel, which works perfectly. Along with mine, Dustin sent glue stick, a waxing stick, cigarette papers, and a bunch of pre-cut bottoms. Okay, so I mean that's kind of handy. What he doesn't have are templates for the skins, and I've made quite a few 44 caliber cartridges, so I have a template that's worked for other systems, and in fact it works for this one. So if you want to make one up, that's what it looks like. So basically it's 1 inch along the sides, which are angled. You're going to curve the top and the bottom. You're going to have to experiment with that. This is 1 5/8 inches on the bottom and 1 3/4 inches on the top, and I find that that's what works for me for 44. Okay, so that's what you're going to want to do. Now, before we get going, I just want to point out that over the last few years, there have been quite a few paper cartridge tools and systems to come out. And the first one of this type was made by Cliff Manley. They were made by wood. They were handcrafted. They were little pieces of art. And Cliff has unfortunately passed away. And since then, there have been other folks who have had these makers out. And they are a big boon. And Dustin at Guns of the West is the latest one. And his has some interesting features I'll get into in a minute. But we wouldn't be doing any of this probably if it wasn't for my friend Mark Hubbs. And Mark is a retired Army archaeologist and former Army officer. And he's a reenactor, and he's interested in all periods. He does the medieval period, the Civil War period, Rev War, you name it. He does it, and he's an author. He's written several novels. He's got a Civil War era novel, and he's got several novels from the 100 Years' War. So he's quite a talented guy, and he got interested in making period-correct conical bullets, of which there really was no source before Mark started his company, which is called Eras Gone Bullet Molds. And he doesn't sell completed bullets. He sells the molds. You can cast them up. He has Dixie fabricate them for him. But he went out and found battlefield finds of actual Civil War bullets and used them to design accurate molds. This is based on the actual Johnson & Dow bullet of the Civil War. And before that, if you wanted to make paper cartridges, it was quite a chore. And finding bullets was the hardest part. I mean, real usable conicals are very rare. So some custom bullet makers here and there had some similar things, not exactly correct. And a lot of us went scrounging around for these brass bullet molds that Dixie sold back in the 60s and 70s as part of display cases that cast a conical and a round ball. And they cast awful conicals. I mean, the seams were mismatched. You know, the halves didn't go together quite right. Those brass molds heated up so much, you know, you just about needed to wear inch-thick leather gloves to be able to hold on to them to cast. I mean, they were awful. And therefore, you didn't see a whole lot of good conical or good paper cartridges. And some folks make them with round balls. They were never made that way back in the era. So when Mark came out with these and with his similar Colt bullets and Walker bullets, it really made it possible for people to get serious about making cartridges. And of course, you know, most of us made our own wooden formers. We machined them to the right the right dimensions, either on a lathe or a drill press, which is what I did, and would make them. But pretty quickly, people started jumping in with these complete systems to fill the bill. And Dustin's, as I say, is quite nice. But thank you, Mark, for getting this all kicked off. Now let's take a look at Dustin's system. So I like, actually, that this is plastic and doesn't stick to things. Now, what he's provided is some wax. If he doesn't have that, a candle will do. And you just kind of wax the end of the mandrel. Now, what I would typically do, I'm probably going too fast here, is I would let that dry, and then I would buff it off. And that just gives you enough slickum so that the paper skins don't fit on. Now, one of the things I really like about Dustin's system is that it has, there we go, it's got flat tops and bottoms. And that means that everything stands up wherever you put it. And you're going to see in a minute why that is so useful, because they're not all like that, and it actually makes it a little bit easier to get the paper out. So I'm going to show you the process for making these cartridges. Now, if you were smart, what you would do is you would make up, well, I'm going to try to show you this without these blowing around. Of course, they weigh about as much as onion skins. You would make up a bunch of shells first, like these are already made up. And you would go on from there. In fact, the smart thing to do, and by the way, these good tweezers are very handy in this process. Put that back on there. Okay, so one of these cigarette papers, I actually like to use JB 1.5s. But these are good. They're very thin. I expect them to burn really well. These have a glue edge, right? What I try to do is to draw these out so that the glue edge is right on the side of the cartridge paper. Right. Now you can get 2 of these on a cigarette paper. And when you're done and you cut them out, they are going to look like this. Okay, now, what I'm going to do is I am going to lick this glue edge right here, which you won't see. But I assume you know what it looks like to lick something. I'm going to take the mandrel. I'm going to just wrap this around. And this is a little bit of a pain in the butt, I'm going to tell you, because you want to get it kind of lined up as well as you can. And you want it to stay tight when you wrap it. Okay, there. Alright, so I'm going to pop that off. Okay, now, typically what I would do, I'm not going to right now, is I would let that dry for a while. But I'm just going to do it, just so you can see it. Alright, that's why I like that. I can just stand that up. Okay, now we've got these pre-cut bottoms that Dustin sent me, and all I can say is God bless you, Dustin, because cutting out the bottoms is, I think, the most tedious process. I just dropped my jackknife. Okay, now these are a little bit smaller, but typically my template for a bottom is a nickel. I don't think we can see this. There's a bottom. All right, my template that I use is a nickel and trace them out. But that, like I say, that is a tedious process. So I'm happy that Dustin sent me a bunch from. Now I'm just going to take this glue stick and I'm just going to glue all around this. Right? Put it on my finger and just get glue all over it. I don't need to be polite. Then you're going to lay it on here. Right, pull it off, and you're just going to set that aside to dry. You want all that to dry up, so you want to just make a bunch of those. So what most people do is they might make a bunch of the wrappers first, cut out and glued. And then when they have a bunch of those, they'll glue the bottoms on, let everything dry, and then they'll start making cartridges. So here's what a completed cartridge looks like. And it makes quite a nice cartridge. I mean, they're good and well packed. You know, fairly sturdy, but these are paper cartridges, so they're not they're not brass. All right, now I store them in a container like this, and these will have to be lubed before using them, but I've shown that in numerous other videos, so I'm not going to be showing it today. Alright, so I'm just going to put these away, and now we're going to make up a few more cartridges. Okay, so let's load up a cartridge. I'm going to take the mandrel, which is right here. I'm going to take a paper cartridge shell. Insert the mandrel in it, make sure that everything is good and together. I'm going to take the former, going to kind of drop it in a little bit. Okay, now I don't necessarily want it in very tight. I'm going to take my funnel, and this is why, let me just show you. I can use Dustin's funnel, but when I do, I'm pouring into that littler hole, and I mean it works, but I prefer a big target because I'm clumsy. So I'm going to take my brass funnel, I'm going to put it in here. That also helps to spread the lips of the paper cartridge a little bit. Alright, now I'm going to load 25 grains of Swiss 3F powder. Now I know that this is in a GoX can, but the reason for that, there we go. The reason for that is so I can use my old pour spouts without having to buy new ones that fit the different plastic cans, which they'll probably change again. So I just keep a bunch of these around and I decant my powder into old metal cans. Right? Okay, so now I'm going to pour my powder in. All right, now I just like to level things off a little bit. Okay, so we're going to take a Johnson & Dow bullet. I'm going to take a glue stick. I'm going to run a bead of glue all around the heel. I want a good glue contact over that whole thing. Right. I don't really want any glue on the bottom. It doesn't particularly hurt, but it'll just stick to the powder and you can get a mess. Alright, so now I'm going to seat the bullet inside the former. And you get a little bit of a crunch on there, and that's what I want. Okay, now I'm going to take this mandrel, I'm going to put it down, and I am going to use it to lift the cartridge up. And that's kind of important because really, you rarely get, I find, a good glue seal just putting it in the former. So I run my fingertips around the top to make sure that glue seals, and then I end up with a nice tight cartridge with the bullet on tight. And there you go. So I'm going to make a few more of these and then we'll be out to the range. So in next week's video, you'll see me take these paper cartridges that we just made, and I'll be shooting them in Remington's Revolving Carbine. And we'll try to have a little bit of fun. So until then, see ya. Well, down below in the description box, I'll provide you with links to direct you to how you can get one of Dustin's cartridge former sets from Guns of the West. Also, how you can pick up some Era's Gone Johnson & Dow conical bullets. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video, and we'll get on to the shooting next week, which will be even more fun, I think. So if you liked it, you know the drill, give it a big thumbs up. If you don't subscribe, go ahead and subscribe. We'd love to have you. And you can always support us on Patreon if you so desire. And you can visit my website, MikeBellevue.com, which has lots more cap and ball information on it. So until next week, keep shooting.